Hey guys, and welcome to another One Warrior podcast. I hope you are having a good week. I guess this is coming out on Wednesday, so hope you are having a good week. I hope you enjoyed last week's episode. I got a lot of questions in my DMs on Instagram and Facebook from some things I talked about last week, so that's good. I'm glad I'm hitting some topics that a lot of people are struggling with, or having problems with, or just have questions about. So I'm glad I could come across and maybe help you guys out with some of that. Now, in today's podcast, I wanted to name this episode something else, but then I was like, you know what? Maybe I shouldn't name it this because maybe that would get some hate. But the original name to this was going to be Sets and Reps Are Bullshit. Learn to Train by Feel. That is what I wanted to name this episode. But then I thought maybe the algorithms wouldn't like that. So I decided to name it something more easy to see. Learn to Train by Feel for 10 times more gains. 10 times more gains. When you look at investments, you always want to try to find something with the most X's, 10 times, 50 times, 100 times more gains. The same thing for muscle. We want the most gains as possible. And us as humans, we always want everything as fast as possible. Now, the bad thing about that is with muscle and being a natural athlete for that part, it's very, very difficult to build muscle. So looking for something that promotes 10x gains, probably not very realistic. So let me say right now, that is clickbait. But the point I'm trying to make in this podcast today is the fact that most people do not know how to train. It's true. I might get hate for that. I might get tons of people saying, "Oh, what are you talking about? You don't know what you're talking about." I get that. But most people out there have no clue from their ass to a hole in the ground how to train, how to lift weights. And how do I know this? Because you can go into any public gym, look around and see what people are doing, and most people have no system at all when training. They're doing some type of exercise, and then maybe they'll do something else, and maybe they'll do that for a couple rounds and then move on to something else, or they have no system. And if you have been a listener to me from the 21 weeks I've done this podcast, 22 weeks now I've done this podcast, I am all about systematic for everything in my life. I have a system for everything. And training is one of the most important reasons to have a system for. Now, I say this, but I also want you to realize here there is more to it than just a system. Because obviously a system usually follows rules, in sets and reps, and you would think those would be rules. You would think I would follow sets and reps. You would think, me saying sets and reps are bullshit would not make sense because I'm a systematic guy when it comes to training. But let's think about really what we are trying to do in the gym. We are trying to accomplish a goal, build muscle, build strength. And when we're trying to accomplish a goal, there's many ways to go about that goal. But I have come to the conclusion that most people don't even know how to go about training. The internet has raised us to count sets. You look up any type of workout program online, and it's always going to say, 5 sets of this, 4 sets of this, 4 sets of 8, 3 sets of 10 to 10, 12 reps. They give us these exact numbers. Now, why do I hate reps and sets so much? I will tell you why I hate reps and sets so much. Because people will hear the reps and sets and think, okay, that's the goal. And when I'm training with people, when I'm taking people through workouts, I don't want them to think, I've hit the reps, I've hit the sets, it's time to move on. No. I hate when people think like that, because what happens here is counting sets can be a downfall because most beginners will just go through the motions. I train with a lot of different people. Some people have, a lot of the people I train with have only lifted maybe 1 or 2 years. They're still in their very beginning states. And I have realized this thing when training with them is they do not understand how to train by feel. They will always concern themselves with the reps and sets instead of going by feel. Let me restate this. The muscle does not understand numbers. The muscle does not know the number of poundage you're lifting. The muscle doesn't know the number of reps you're doing. The muscle does not even know how many sets you're doing. The muscle knows one thing. If it's hard, it's going to adapt to not die. If it's easy, it's not going to adapt because it doesn't need to worry about the stress. So what happens when people are doing reps and sets and counting reps and sets? They say, okay, 4 sets of 8. Okay, I've done 4 sets of 8. Let's move on. Was those 4 sets of 8 actually a challenge though, or did you just go through the motions? Because most people will go through the motions. And I see this all the time with people I train with. They ask, hey Sean, how much sets, how much reps? And I tell them, well, we're going to build up to something and we're going to do some back down sets and maybe some working sets, but it should all be difficult. And I tell them that and they're kind of puzzled. They don't know what to do. I have rules that we're going to go into in this workout that I follow for every one of my workouts that keeps them in a systematic way. But how I train is I train completely by feel. Now, yes, I will say 5 sets, maybe 5 sets of 3 with the people I'm training with, just so they have an idea. If we're doing some strength work or something, 5 sets of 5 or 5 sets of 3. But a lot of times I don't even know what we're going to be doing set-wise and rep-wise till I actually get going in the workout. And this depends upon a lot of factors. Depends on sleep. Depends on how much food you had during the day. Depends how stressed your day was at work. These all are factors that you have to factor in when you're training for the day. So saying you're planning out your workout on the drive to the gym, I'm going to do 5 sets of 5 and work up to 1 rep, 5 sets of 5 and maybe a couple back down sets. You get to the gym, you work up to a 1 rep max and it sucks. It's terrible. And then you're trying to tell yourself, I got 5 sets of 5 at this weight today. This is not going to happen. I slept like shit the other night. This is why having sets and reps is a bad plan, because let's say you didn't sleep good the night before and you go to the gym and your mind is set on 5 sets of 5 at this certain weight. Now you're not going to be able to hit that. You're mentally, psychologically going to be psyched out. You're going to have a bad workout. It's just going to be a bad day. That is why training for reps and sets just does not work for the long-term progress of things. Sure, you can have a base, say 5 sets of 5 or 5 sets of 3, but knowing how to adjust your training as you feel for the day is super important. And that is what you're going to learn in today's episode. Is basically you can go to the gym after having the most stressful day and still get in a kick-ass workout, kick-ass training session. Because what I teach you today, you will be able to adjust on the fly when you feel good or when you feel bad. And you will always be able to have a good training session. Back to what I was talking about though, why is sets and reps not a good idea? Because if you feel good during a movement, why stop? There are some times I will be training with people and we just keep doing set after set after set. And I will get this question, Sean, how many sets are we doing? And I always laugh in my head and it always makes me want to smash a wall with my fist. Because you have to understand, if something feels good for the day, why would you stop? Say we're doing side laterals and they feel really good on that day. No shoulder pain. They feel light. You feel strong and you're having fun doing it. Why stop at 4 sets? Why stop at 5 sets? Why stop at 6 sets? I like to do an exercise until it doesn't feel right. Once the exercise feels off, then I move on. And this is something you learn as you train. You learn because when you're focusing so much on form, I'm a big person on form. When form gets sloppy, when things feel off, we stop the exercise and move on. Some days that may only be 3 sets. Some days that may only be 2 working sets. And some days that may be 10 working sets. The point is, training by feel, you allow yourself to do movements that feel good. And then the movements, and that goes to the other part of this too, if it feels bad, why keep going? Say you're doing shoulder presses, and after your 3rd set, everything feels off. You're no longer hitting the reps that you wanna. It's feeling heavier than it should. You just feel taxed. Why force yourself to do more sets then? You're already taxed for that movement. Move on. This is why you need to learn how to train by feel. Don't force yourself to do 5 sets if you're only feeling like doing 2 sets. Or if you only literally, you literally just can't do any more sets because everything feels off. For an example, when it comes to leg training for me, I have a lot of difficulties for many reasons. The first reason is I have scoliosis, so my spine is curved to one way. The second reason is because I have 2 herniations in my disc, L4, L5, and disc degeneration because of those discs have been knocked out of place. So therefore, those 2 problems, and then on top of that, my left leg is longer than my right leg. And my left hip is shifted out of place because of my sciatica, or because of my scoliosis. So literally, I am not designed as a human to train legs, but I love training legs, and I do it every week. Most doctors would advise against it with my issues that I have, but I don't. I love training legs. I love squatting. But for me, when I'm training legs, there gets to a point, even on, say, leg press, where my hips literally are not lined up anymore, things don't feel right, and I have to stop the exercise. This just happens, and I've learned how to live with that. This is something that, and I'm saying this because everybody may have a certain problem, or you may be able to do every lift perfectly. That's cool too. I'm just using this as an example though. On leg press, when my hips are aligned right at the beginning of a workout, before things get out of place, I can feel really good on leg press. Maybe 5 sets in though, my hips start getting out of place, or my torso starts to twist and not the proper position or something, and then I have to stop and move on to a different exercise. Some days that's different, but this is something that's completely by feel. Now, if you have a perfectly designed body, all perfect, good spine, perfect, good hips, and everything like that, a straight spine, good on you, very good on you. Okay, I just wanted to bring that up though because if you have, problems, if you have shoulder problems or elbow problems, you have to know your limits on those exercises too, because you can't push through that pain. If you have actual pain in an exercise, you kind of have to stop and move on. So I wanted to make sure and cover that because I know a lot of people struggle with actual, injuries and disabilities on their, set frame and whatnot. And that's something to remember to adjust your workouts to, depending on how you feel. So now I want to go into the rules for every workout that I have. There are certain rules that I follow that keep my routines an actual routine and not just going in the gym and doing whatever. The first one is I always work up to a 1 rep conservative max every compound day. So every compound day meaning any type of push day, any type of leg day. Back days, I don't like doing this just because back, I like to, at the max, 5 reps is a good work up to back, working up to a 5 rep max. I don't like working up to a 1 rep max just because I feel like it's kind of pointless on back day. Also, sometimes shoulder days, we don't always do presses first. Sometimes we do reverse, we work on rear delts first or side delts. But the majority of like our compound days, say our Monday chest day, that's always going to be working up to a conservative max. Tuesday leg day, we're always going to be working probably to a conservative in something if we do a strength movement. But anytime you start your workout with a strength exercise, a compound day, you always want to start yourself up with a conservative 1 rep max for the day. Conservative meaning that it may be a PR or it may just be conservative for the day because you're just not feeling as strong. I put conservative there though because you're not going to feel 100% every day. So say for example, if your max bench is 275, a conservative might be 245 or 240 for the day, depending on how you feel. And that's good enough. The main thing for that first movement is getting your mindset ready for the day. Because working up to a 1 rep, and I've talked about this many times and in my book, is by working up to a 1 rep for the day for your warm-up, basically programs everything else to feel light. You're firing up your central nervous system for the day, so everything else feels light. That is the main point of that conservative 1 rep max for those compound days. After you do that, the next part, the rule of my workout is I perform some strength sets. So some being anywhere from 3 to 6 sets of strength training in the 1 to 5 rep range. So say an incline bench press, or maybe just a bench press, or, squats. The first, 3 to 6 sets will be strength oriented, meaning that 1 to 5 rep scheme. That means I am training in a strength scheme for that first exercise. Okay. Now, there may be some days where we may cap the first exercise for just strength and just, do 5 sets of strength work and be done with that. There are some other days, though, where we still feel good for that day, and we'll do a couple back down sets. Now, back down sets are not drop sets. I think a lot of people think back down sets are drop sets. No. Back down sets are just lighter than what you did, and you do them for more reps. So, for example, if you did a 225-pound bench press for 5 sets of 5, a back down set would be maybe 205 or 185 or 195 for a couple more sets of 8 to 10. You should be able to rep that out. If you got 5 sets of 5 with 225, you should be able to hit 185 to 205 for a couple sets of 8 to 10. These are back down sets. And then maybe that would be that's it for the strength exercise for the day. So after that, and another rule I have is for the rest of the workout, always do at least 1 warm-up set for at least each exercise. So say, for example, after shoulder press, we move on to side laterals. The first literal time I pick up the weights to do side laterals, it's a complete warm-up set. Usually I will pick a pretty light weight, go through the motion, about maybe 15 reps, just making sure everything's firing for the day. I analyze myself. If everything's firing, then we move into working sets. And those working sets could depend on the day. If I feel really good, they will be build-up sets, meaning that we'll build up each set. Otherwise, they may be just straight sets, meaning that we use the same weight, straight sets for the same weight over till we're done for the day. And if I feel really good, we'll maybe do side lateral drop sets. So we'll pick 2 weights, a heavier one and a lighter one, and we'll just do drop sets and then keep doing set after set. The point is, though, to go by feel, how you're feeling for the day. You're not always going to have the energy to want to do drop sets. You're not always going to have, or maybe you will have the energy you want to do drop sets. The basic thing here you have to understand is how you feel for the day depends on a lot of factors, like we talked about. And you have to know how to adjust your training based on that. I know so many ways of training, from drop sets, single sets, super sets, giant sets, run the rack. I think I named 25 in my book, but I know tons. I know tons of different ways of training, meaning that I can go in the gym if I'm tired for the day and still have a killer session just because I know how to adapt my training to that. And this is stuff you learn over time. You learn by doing. You learn by experimenting on yourself. I spent years and years and years and years and years and years of experimenting on myself, trying new ways of training. And that's how I came up with the 500 million ways I know how to train. I get this all the time. Like, how did you come up with this exercise? It's like lots of years of doing this stuff, lots of years. So it's that rule, do a warm-up set for at least each exercise. It analyzes yourself, how you feel for the day. That warm-up set will be like, okay, I can do 6 sets of this today. I'm feeling great. Or that didn't feel that good. Maybe we'll only do 2 or 3 sets. So the next rule I follow is do anywhere between 3 to 6 sets for each exercise. That's a good rule to follow. Now, I don't like to count sets. So I say, 3 to 6. If it's not feeling good for the day, stop after 3. If it's feeling really good, keep going. And, after 6 sets, if it's still feeling good, sure, keep going. But usually after 6 sets, you kind of want to move on to something else. That's just a good standard to go by. Reps, you need to keep in between for 1 to 5 for strength and 6 to 15 for hypertrophy. So when we're doing the strength movement for the day, the reps are always going to be 1 to 5. That's simple. And when we're doing hypertrophy work, the reps are always going to be 6 to 15. Depending on the day. If you feel really good for the day and want to go heavier, you're going to push that 6 to 8 rep range for hypertrophy. If you feel like you want to go a little lighter weight and maybe work on more reps because you just didn't sleep as good and your strength sucks for the day, you're going to push that, 10 to 15 rep for hypertrophy. Go a little lighter and go 10 to 15. But once again, this is all by feel. It's all feel, it's all range. The ranges give you an idea of what to work in. But how you feel depends on how you feel. And I want to make sure people understand this. And the people that train with me, listen up right now, real closely, because I know the people I train with listen to this podcast. When you're training with me and I give you a range, that range means, okay, I might be doing something completely different than you because I feel completely different than you. Say, for example, somebody that's working out with me and they've worked a construction job for the day and they are shit tired, and then they're training with me where I have a desk job and my workout is my energy for the day. I feel excellent. So we're at the gym and I say the rep range is hypertrophy 6 to 15. Well, the person that did construction all day probably doesn't want to do 6 to 8 reps for their hypertrophy work because that's going to be heavier. It's going to be a lot more taxing. They might say, okay, thanks for the range, Sean. I'm going to do 10 to 15. I'm going to do more reps, but less weight because I'm just taxed from my day job. But I may be doing, 6 to 8 reps, just going hard and heavy, taking more rest time because I feel like doing that because I feel better than that said person. So when people train with me, I do this. I tell them their range is, I give them a range for what we're doing. And that's range depends. So if you're feeling really good, you're going to go with the less reps, more weight. If you don't feel so good for the day, you're going to go less weight, more reps. That's just a very easy way to go about it. Very easy to adapt. And it can work for anybody. It can work for beginners, intermediate, or an advanced person. You basically just have to know how good you feel. How good you feel. Feel really good? Go heavier. Feel not so good? Go a little bit lighter, more reps. And I put this in here again. If an exercise feels good, keep going. There's no need to think that you need to do, I don't know. If there's no need to think you need to do only 3 or 4 sets. If something feels good, you just keep going. And there is one more rule on here. For each day that we train, I like to at least have 5 exercises a day. 5 exercises a day is a very solid workout. 5 exercises a day, and the sets for those exercises and reps depend on the day. 5 exercises, the first one may be 5 sets of 5. The next exercise may be 4 sets of 8 to 12. The next one may be a superset with something for, 3 sets of 12 to 15. And then we might finish out with one more exercise, 4 sets of 8 to 12. That's just an easy way to go about training. But those are the main rules. Work up to something heavy for the day. Do some back off strength sets. Do maybe a couple hypertrophy reps in that same exercise for strength. And then the rest of the exercise, 4 to 5 exercises after that, do hypertrophy work in the 6 to 15 rep range for as many sets as feels good. 3 at the least and, 6 at the most. So depending on how you feel, that's how you do it. And that's just a good way to follow. A very good way to follow that can allow you to adjust your workouts by feel. Now, the next thing now you're probably asking, well, how do I know how I feel? How do I train by feel? I don't know what heavyweight feels like. I don't know what lightweight feels like. This is where the RPE scale, rate of perceived exertion, comes into play. And there are, some people that I'm sure have heard me talk about this. I may have done a set of squats at the gym and said, damn, that was an RPE 9 for the day. And they look at me like, what kind of language are you speaking? I don't speak that language. Today, my friends, you are going to learn the rate of perceived exertion scale. So you need to know this scale was created by the military, basically, and it was used to judge how much effort was needed to be given to do something in the military. 1 being super easy, 10 being an all-out max, all-out effort. And they did this to, test how hard stuff was or how much pain something caused. They did this in the military to basically have a scale. And this is something you learn over time. A lot of people, when they first learn this, they have no idea what an RPE 9 feels like. They may do something and be like, oh, that's an RPE 9. And I look at it, I'm like, dude, that was an RPE 6. You had like 4 to 5 reps left in you. So how heavy it is and how hard it is how high the scale is. So for example, say your max squat is, 375. Let's put it up there. 375. That's a max squat. That's a 10 out of 10 on the RPE scale, being an all out. Well, maybe 360 is an RPE 8, meaning that it was hard, but you maybe had at the max 2 reps left. Basically, the RPE scale is gauging how many reps left you could have done. So if you are at an RPE 9, you probably had 1 rep left. If you are at an RPE 10, that's a max. That's your all-out effort for the day. That's all out. RPE 7, you probably had 3 reps left in the tank. RPE 6, you're definitely not working hard enough. You had more than 3 reps left in the tank. Pick a heavier weight. And that's how you adjust, being on the RPE scale. Most of your training should be in RPE 8 to 9, meaning that most of your exercises, most of your sets are leaving about only 1 rep in the tank. So not always going 100%, not always going RPE 10, because if you always go RPE 10, you're not going to get the most out of your workout because you're going to get tired more fast. I always like to leave at least 1 rep in the tank for each set I do. That way I don't go all out unless it's an all-out exercise. So say it's the last set of an exercise or something, maybe then I'll push like to an RPE 10 and maybe throw in some failure too with maybe a drop set or an extended set or force negatives, so an advanced technique, something that beginners don't need to do all the time, or at all for that. Most beginners can look at weights and grow, but more advanced athletes, more people that have been in the gym a longer time, you need to figure out how to extend that RPE 10 after that, for a few exercises every day, just to kind of keep your body growing for that and keep your body trying to adapt. But most of your training should be in that RPE 8 to 9 range, leaving 1 rep in the tank on most things. And that's your strength work too. When you're doing like 5 sets of 5, you do not want all sets of 5 to be an RPE 10. Lower the damn weight. People think strength has to be all out. Every set has to be hard as hell, never getting any more reps than what's set on the schedule. That is not true. Even on my strength work, I like to hit an RPE, 8 to 9, meaning I'm leaving about 1 rep in the tank. Not all out failure, but just leaving about 1 rep in the tank. And I do that for multiple reasons. The main one, though, is not getting injured. If you're always at least leaving 1 rep in the tank, it's hard to get injured because most injuries happen when you're trying to train past failure, trying to push past levels where you're not adapted to yet. And that's where injury can likely happen. And most of your growth is going to happen anyway in those last, 3 reps. Or last 3 to 4 reps. So you're getting plenty of stimulus, even if you're leaving 1 rep left in the tank. Use to gauge how you feel for the day, depending on how your top set went for the day. So if you squat, if your max squat is a 375, that's your all-time PR. And once you get to like 315, you'll start to gauge how good you feel for the day. Say, for example, you do 315 and it flies. It was an RPE, 6 or 5. You're like, holy shit, that was super light. You're like, I might be able to break my PR today. And there's other days you might get in the gym, squat 315, and you're like, holy shit, that was an RPE 8. You're not going to hit 375 for the day. You're tired for the day. That's a good scheme. That's a good mental note that you're going to have to lower the sets for the day, lower the reps for the day, or maybe even do more reps and less weight for the day just because you're not feeling at your top. But as you lift in your warm-up, and this is why I like only doing 1 to 3 reps in my warm-up, building up for the day, 1 to 3 depending on how I feel. Those 1 to 3 reps allow me to gauge how heavy something feels without tiring myself out. So for me, once on squats or something, I don't like to do more than 1 rep after I get over 185. Because if I'm doing more than 1 rep after 185, I'm just using energy to do that. I only need 1 rep to analyze how hard that feels. People say, oh, I need to do 3 reps to adjust how I feel on that. No, you don't. You need 1 rep. You need 1 rep. 1 rep. If that rep was easy, you're going a lot heavier for the day. It's literally that easy how to adjust for the day. Don't be doing like 3 to 5 reps on your warm-up weights because you're going to be burning yourself out, using more energy than you need. And at that point, you're actually working out and you're not warming up. If your max on bench is 225, don't rep out 185 for 3 reps. Hit it for a single, adjust how you feel, base it on the RPE scale. If it was an RPE, 7, you're good for the day. You're feeling really good. 185 felt relatively light. You maybe will hit a new PR for the day. On the other scheme of things, if you hit 185 and you're like, shit, RPE 9.5, you're not going to go that heavy today. You're just not feeling it. You're not in the mood to hit it. You're not in there. You're just not in the zone. And that's okay. That's why we have the RPE scale. Now, there is a bad thing about the RPE scale, and that's when beginners jump on it right away. And I kind of covered this already, but most beginners have no idea what heavyweight feels. They will do something that they think is heavy, and they will say, oh, damn, that was an RPE 10. And I look at them, I'm like, dude, you're going up. That was an RPE 7 or 6. Because it's all upon how fast you move the weight. If you're really grinding the weight and you're shaking, chances are that's an RPE 10. But most beginners do not understand the RPE scale. They will think something is an RPE way heavier than it actually is because they're just not used to how heavy weight feels. That's why the RPE scale should be integrated maybe, your second to third year in, and your first year, you maybe don't want to use the RPE scale just because you don't have a feel for how heavy things are yet. Once you start understanding how heavy things feel for your body, you can start engaging the RPE scale for everything you do, and you completely train by feel. I started doing this basically, after 6 to 7 years of training, just because I could literally pick up a weight and know exactly how that felt for the day, exactly how many sets, how many reps I could do based on the exertion that I gave on that weight. And this is something you learn over time. When you get really good at it, you can go over to any exercise and start your working sets after a warm-up set because you know exactly how you feel for the day depending on how things go. And you can adjust on the fly. Say, for example, you're building up and you hit an RPE 10 out of nowhere. Okay, you're starting to lose energy for the day. Back off a little bit and maybe do less weight, maybe focus on form more so you have more energy for the rest of the workout to get through it. Don't just blow everything on one exercise. That's another reason how the RPE scale is so powerful. It allows you not to exert everything you have on one exercise for the day. It allows you to know how much energy to use on that one exercise for the day and how to partition your energy out throughout a workout. People ask, how I train an hour and a half every day, an hour and a half, 2 hours every day. It's because I know how to partition my energy out. I'm not just blowing everything out on one exercise. It's a partitioned effort. And once you learn that, it makes your workouts that more effective because you're able to give equal effort to everything instead of just burning yourself out. People who just start to train with me learn this really quick because what happens when they first start to train with me is they burn themselves out early on in the workout and then they're dead by the end and they're like, how the hell am I going to have enough effort to do this ending stuff? It's because they didn't know how to partition their energy. They didn't know how to gauge things on the RPE scale. But the longer you train, the more easier the RPE scale feels and how to integrate it into your training. And once you know how to integrate it in your training, everything becomes that much more effective because you truly know how to train by feel. You can also, gauge how you can also use the RPE scale to see how much stronger you've gotten over time. Say, for example, 315 on squat was previously an RPE 9, but today you squatted it and it's an RPE 7. So now you're like, holy shit, is this really 315? This used to be an RPE 9. Now it's only a 7. I feel like I have 3 to 4 more reps in the tank. Well, that's a PR right there. That's called an RPE PR. And people may have heard me say this and revert to this. I may have said this in my training, saying like, wow, that was an RPE PR. And they look at me like, what? It means it's a rate of perceived exertion PR, being that you hit a weight that you usually struggle with, but you hit it with a very less RPE than you hit it with before. And that's a very cool thing to do because it means that you're getting stronger without having to test your 1 rep max. Yes, you can get stronger without having to test your 1 rep max. Plenty of people do it. Ed Cohen was the best powerlifter of all time, and he never, ever touched anything over 90% of his 1 rep max in his training blocks. He saved all those max lifts for at his meets. And people always ask how in the hell he was able to hit a PR every damn meet. Because he trained in the most optimal range to allow him to hit the most volume, but not going so heavy over time that he got worn out. And he used the RPE scale to do that. He used the RPE scale being that his goal for the day was not just to hit a PR for the day, but it was to hit a less weight for an easier exertion. So if you have a 375 squat and you're working up to it and say you hit 315 or 325 and you notice how it just flew, call that your top for the day. You just hit a PR. You hit an RPE PR for the day. Now, obviously, if you're feeling really good, keep going up. Why not? Why not see if you can hit a new PR for the day? But if you're just not feeling mentally maybe ready to hit a PR for the day, call that a PR. You just hit an RPE PR for the day, a rate of perceived exertion PR. You made that weight fly faster and more controlled and more powerful than you have previously. That's a PR, my friends. To learn RPE, you first must write down and track everything. This is what I tell the beginners training, 1 to 3 years trying to learn RPE. And this is why I tell those people to write down everything. How you feel during the day, how do you feel during your workouts, how you feel. I literally have so many journals, and I have all these to prove too. I can pull them all out. I have over 8 full notebooks of workouts, and not just workouts, but how I felt during the day, how many calories I took in. I literally overdid everything. I tracked everything. Rate of perceived exertion on everything. On shoulder flies, I targeted, I literally wrote down my rate of perceived exertion. Now, I overdid it. You don't have to do that for everything, for your accessories. But how I learned RPE was I tracked everything. So then over time, I could memorize it. And I could memorize how heavy things usually feel to how they are now. And how heavy they are now to where they are in the future. And by doing that, it allowed me to completely learn the RPE scale for whatever I was doing for the day. But I learned that by tracking. Tracking will teach you so much. Just like when I talk about nutrition, tracking for those first 3 years is so important because it teaches you how to, learn from your body how many calories it needs, and you can adjust over time. And it just is perfect. When you track things, you can adjust things because you have them written out on paper. You don't have to do it for life. Don't think you have to do it for life. But you should do it to begin with because you can learn a lot from tracking. And, use RPE to know if your diet, sleep, and recovery are on point. I do this all the time. For the first exercise of the day, we like to work up for a conservative rep. Say, for example, something that usually feels lighter for the day feels super heavy. That is a signifying notification to me that I have to look at how I slept. Maybe I need to add more carbs in my diet. Maybe I need to add more fats in my diet. And maybe I need to take more recovery days because my recovery is not on point. How you feel during those heavy sets, you can literally use the RPE scale to know what to adjust outside the gym. Your diet, your sleep, your recovery days. All those are so important. And using rate of perceived exertion will allow you to know when to adjust that. If something doesn't feel good, that usually feels good, maybe look back at your sleep tracker. Was your sleep on point? Maybe your diet wasn't on point. Like I said, maybe you just need more recovery days. RPE will literally allow you to gauge everything and control every variable in your training once you learn how to train by feel. It's such a powerful thing. We need to stop counting sets and reps so much. It's just all there is to it. So many people get stuck in sets and reps and think that once the sets and reps is done, that's good, move on. You need to start thinking about, instead of sets and reps, how much effort are you really giving the muscle? If you've only done 3 to 4 sets and you feel like you can do more, why stop there? I'm not saying blow everything on that one exercise. Like I said, partition your energy equally through the workout. But if you're trying to target your side delts, why only stop at 4 sets when you feel like you can do more? Like I said, to make a muscle grow, the muscle doesn't care about sets and reps. All it cares about is if something is hard and if it needs to adapt so it does not die. That is the main thing when you are trying to build muscle. That is the main thing. All that leads you to doing is going through the motions, when you just count sets and reps. And that's the main thing you need to get away from. When you are just going through the motions in your training, you are wasting your time. You're better off playing video games or something else. Because if you're just going through the motions at the gym, that's all you're doing. You're just burning calories. You're not trying to build muscle. When you're doing the reps, you should feel the muscle working. You should be in that muscle. Sometimes I'll close my eyes. I got this tip from Mike O'Hearn. Sometimes I'll close my eyes when I'm doing an isolation exercise and just envisioning myself inside that muscle, pulling or pushing the weight. And it will allow me to have such an interesting mind-muscle connection that is kind of methodical in ways. That is what you need to learn when you're training. Not how many sets, how many reps. So many beginners and so many intermediates too get stuck on this sets and reps thing. And it's so much more than sets and reps. Train by feel, learn how to train by feel, use the RPE scale to train by feel, and you will be amazed how much stronger you can get. And with that, guys, that's all I have to talk about today. Hope you guys enjoyed this shorter episode of One Warrior. If you're not following me on Instagram, make sure you do. I post stories on there. I post questions on there. And I also interact with my audience on there. Facebook, too, I also interact quite a bit with. But I'm really trying to grow that Instagram. Fozzie14 is my Instagram handle. Make sure and follow me on there. If you haven't picked up my book yet, I talk about this and so many more topics in there, and it's still only $20 on Amazon. I'm keeping that sale going for now, maybe through the holidays, through Christmas and whatnot, if you want to pick it up for a family member. But thank you guys for all the support, and we will see you guys next week. Stay strong, and God bless.